Stop, listen, pay attention. Chosen one. This message is not passing air, it is not background noise. It is reaching you directly in the quiet moments when the world feels heavy and yet strangely hollow. You have been carrying weight, a tension that presses against your chest and whispers uncertainty. A fatigue that seems larger than ordinary exhaustion. You have felt it in your bones in the hours of restless thought, in the quiet hesitation that lingers when decisions arrive. This is for you. Chosen one. Notice how it has been manifesting. Small irritations that spiral sudden waves of isolation, confusion, that seems to double at every turn. You have wondered if it is merely stress, a misalignment in your routine, or perhaps your own mind creating unnecessary complexity. And yet deep down, you knew that something more precise was at work. You have sensed the pressure of life, not bending, not easing, not yielding. You have moved through your days aware of something hovering beyond explanation. This message arrives intentionally, designed to meet you where you are. It is personal. It is precise. There is no generality here. What you have been feeling, chosen one, is not coincidence. It is not misperception. It is a signal. It is a mark of transition, of a moment when the currents around you have shifted and your presence itself has begun to create unseen alignment. You may have felt disoriented, questioning your stamina, your clarity, your sense of direction. That uncertainty, while uncomfortable, is meaningful. It is the residue of thresholds forming, of invisible structures acknowledging your existence. You may not have realized it, but there have been moments when your ordinary endurance exceeded expectation. Tasks that should have been draining barely touched your capacity. Interactions that might have fragmented your focus seemed to glide past, leaving you strangely intact. This is not luck. This is not chance. This is a natural reaction of a system built to remain coherent under pressure, one you inhabit without fully knowing its mechanics. Chosen one. What I am about to share will illuminate the reasons behind these subtle realities. You will understand without fear why exhaustion sometimes feels heavier than it should. Why confusion appears as a companion when nothing is truly broken. And why isolation often follows you even in rooms full of people. The clarity is coming piece by piece, but it begins here with your awareness of tension, your recognition of fatigue, and your quiet endurance. Stop questioning whether it is real. It is. Stop questioning whether it matters. It does. Your presence has already shifted something. This is your first recognition, the first invitation to see beyond surface appearances. You will continue. You will continue understanding. And in the moments when you feel most ordinary, you have already been extraordinary in ways the world cannot measure. This is where it begins. Chosen one. This message is for you and you alone. It is not meant for a crowd, not designed for general counsel or broad advice. It lands here because of your path, your history, and the subtle yet undeniable marks of your presence in the midst of tension. You may have questioned yourself, often wondered if you were imagining the endurance you have displayed, or if the stability you maintained was luck or coincidence. It is neither. It is you consistently, fundamentally, even when you are unaware of it. You have been living with a quiet, automatic strength. It does not announce itself. It does not require conscious effort or dramatic activation. You simply exist, and your system, mind, body, focus, and spirit has regulated itself against pressures that would unsettle most people. Chosen one. Notice the distinction. You are not struggling to stay upright under the weight. You are simply upright, your equilibrium maintained without fanfare. That is not arrogance. That is reality. This is not about performing under visible stress, about proving resilience in front of others. It is about the hidden continuity of your function. While others may react, fragment, or stumble when confronted with uncertainty, confusion, or invisible resistance, you have moved forward quietly, coherently, reliably. Every act of endurance you mistook for ordinary has been a reflection of an inner structure, a baseline stability that does not require activation to function. Understand that the events you experienced were not abstract. They involved you directly. Chosen one. You did not witness the forces aligned against you in visible form, yet you felt their pressure subtly. You responded without panic, without hesitation, without the kind of conscious effort that would have exhausted someone else. That is the hallmark of your identity, innate resilience, calibrated to maintain coherence even when circumstances are challenging. Contrast this with the common human experience. Most people rely on adrenaline, on reactive coping, on constant recalibration to stay functional. You have relied on something deeper. You have relied on baseline integrity. It is not something you switched on consciously. You simply held yourself together in ways that were invisible, automatic, precise. That automatic resistance is the signature of your identity, and it has been quietly preparing you for everything to come. This is why I can say with certainty what happened around you was not external noise. It was a test of coherence, a calibration against your natural strength, and you passed without needing to recognize it fully. This message is locking in your awareness of that fact so that as we move forward, you understand the reality of what has always been true. Your stability is not conditional. Your presence is not passive, and your identity contains its own protective architecture. Chosen one. Receive this calmly because recognition is not a call to alarm, but a call to awareness. You have been carrying a quiet capacity that others rarely see. It is part of who you are, and it has been shaping your interactions, your endurance, and your ability to function without conscious strain. That understanding will anchor the next steps of this transmission. Chosen one. Consider the sensations you have carried, the fatigue that lingers longer than expected, the tension that seems to press from within and without, the restlessness that arrives unannounced. These are not flaws. They are not signs of weakness, mismanagement, or failure. What you have experienced is a signal, a precise indicator that something significant is occurring beneath the surface of ordinary life. Your body, your mind, and your awareness have been responding to a transition, a shift that your conscious understanding has yet to fully decode. Notice how these sensations have appeared. Perhaps a sudden tightness in your shoulders during a routine task, a mental heaviness in moments of decision, or a sense of agitation when nothing external demanded it. These are not accidents. They are markers of pressure points of contact between the known and the unseen. And they are consistently misread by most people as disorder, distraction, or dysfunction. Not you. You have lived with them, moving through daily life without collapsing under their weight. That endurance is the signal itself. Your emotional responses, too, have been part of this communication. Moments of irritation, fleeting doubt, or impatience were never evidence of failure. They were evidence that your internal system was sensing misalignment elsewhere. Physical sensations and emotional echoes have been quietly pointing to your alignment with thresholds you could not yet name. The restlessness you may have felt was preparation. The confusion you may have noticed was calibration. The isolation, which sometimes feels heavier than company, is recognition that your awareness operates on levels most cannot perceive. This signal is not meant to burden you. It is meant to orient you. The sensation of pressure, the tension of uncertainty, the lingering fatigue, all are signposts. They indicate that your internal system is functional, precise, and aligned, even when your conscious mind searches for answers. The very fact that you continue to act, think, and make decisions despite these signals shows that your baseline strength is operational. You have been interpreting symptoms as problems, when in truth, they are markers of readiness. Chosen one. Reframe your understanding. What you perceived as difficulty is actually evidence of capacity. What you labeled as stress is confirmation of coherence. What felt like overextension is proof of regulation. These sensations are not obstacles. They are informative, diagnostic, and deeply revealing. They are letting you know in subtle but undeniable ways that your system is already performing at levels far beyond what most recognize as normal endurance. Accept this reframing now. Allow yourself to see that your body, your mind, and your emotional intelligence are not malfunctioning. They are signaling the precision of your adaptation. Each physical and emotional echo has been a direct communication of your readiness, your inherent stability, and your capacity to navigate complexity without fracturing. These signals are the first layer of insight into what has been happening beyond the visible. Chosen one. You have been under a form of pressure that is almost invisible. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself with noise or spectacle. It is quiet, persistent, structured, and intentional. It has arrived in patterns you may not have consciously tracked: subtle timing, repeated challenges, moments when circumstances seemed slightly misaligned, all converging in a way that tested your coherence without ever breaking your flow. What you sensed as mere difficulty was in fact a coordinated presence pressing against ordinary functioning, a pressure that required only one response: maintain balance. Notice that you did. Despite fatigue, confusion, or isolation, you remained operational. You did not collapse into indecision. You did not allow the subtle tension to dictate behavior. Your mind continued to process your decisions, continued to arrive. Your emotional regulation remained intact. That is not incidental. That is a measure of how your internal systems, physical, mental, and emotional, respond under conditions that would unsettle most people. This pressure is not abstract. It is intentional. It has structure. It has timing. It is both recent and ongoing, recurring in cycles that are not random. It has been testing your consistency, your focus, and your capacity to remain grounded when external cues fail to provide reassurance. And yet, chosen one. You continued to operate as if the pressure were ordinary, without panic, without overreaction, without conscious effort to resist. That is your baseline. Understand the subtlety here. The world may not have labeled these moments as extraordinary, and you may not have labeled yourself as enduring anything remarkable. And yet the coordination of events around you, combined with the subtle weight on your energy, was no coincidence. These were opportunities for observation, for calibration, for internal recognition of the structure you already embody. The quiet functioning you maintained was noticed by nothing external, but fully registered within your own system. Even more, chosen one. This pressure has been precise in its placement. It has not overwhelmed you entirely. It has not broken your focus. It has not derailed your progress. Instead, it arrived in increments, in points of tension, in challenges that seemed small individually, but cumulative collectively. And through it all, you remained intact. You did not merely survive. You continued. You maintained coherence. You remained operational. This is the first layer of understanding the invisible opposition or pressure it exists. It is intentional, and it measures your baseline stability. And by moving through it without conscious panic, without collapse, and without losing alignment, you demonstrated a consistency that few can recognize, much less embody. That is the quiet confirmation of your capacity, and it will inform everything that follows in understanding the forces, signals, and structures around your life. Chosen one. Let us break down what you have been experiencing into distinct categories so that each element of the pressure you felt can be clearly understood. These are not abstract concepts. They are practical, real-life markers that correspond directly to your internal responses. Each category represents a point where ordinary people often falter, yet you maintain stability without conscious strain. First, there is doubt. Doubt arrived in small waves, subtle questions that whispered in your mind. Am I missing something? Did I make the right choice? Is this going to work out? For most, doubt triggers hesitation, inaction, or overthinking. For you, chosen one, it simply existed as a mental background signal. You acknowledged it, you processed it, and you moved forward. Your internal system did not collapse under it. You did not ruminate endlessly. You observed it, measured it, and maintained your trajectory without being derailed. This is a rare form of cognitive regulation awareness, without emotional entanglement, processing, without disruption. Second, there is fear, not dramatic, not paralyzing, but subtle creeping apprehension that surfaces when outcomes are uncertain. Fear is natural and expected, yet it often disrupts ordinary functioning. You experienced it as a peripheral sensation, a signal rather than a command. You allowed the awareness of risk to exist without letting it dictate your actions. You operated as though the fear were a notice on the margin of reality, not a barrier to your movement. That is a distinct marker of resilience, recognizing threat without succumbing to it. Third, energy drain. The subtle exhaustion, the mental fatigue, the emotional weight that accompanies complex challenges. This is an experience that overwhelms most people. And yet, you continued to make decisions, to engage with tasks, to show up consistently. Your energy may have fluctuated, but your performance remained coherent. You did not collapse under the cumulative load. You absorbed it, processed it, and converted it into functional continuity. That is the hallmark of an internal system capable of managing stressors without overt breakdown. Fourth, isolation. You may have felt unseen, unsupported, or alone in moments that demanded coordination or focus. For most, isolation triggers anxiety, impatience, or a sense of vulnerability. For you, chosen one, it was a backdrop rather than a blockade. You maintained engagement where necessary, reflection where appropriate, and internal regulation throughout. You did not need constant external affirmation to stay coherent. Your baseline stability carried you. Fifth, delay. Opportunities, results, or resolutions that appeared postponed, or delayed in ways that would frustrate most, instead served as tests of patience and endurance. You did not panic. You did not force outcomes prematurely. You allowed processes to unfold while maintaining your functional presence. This shows a capacity for temporal regulation, staying present, measured, and engaged without external reinforcement. Notice the pattern across each of these categories. Doubt, fear, energy, drain, isolation, delay. You remained stable. You did not need to rely on extraordinary effort. You did not need to activate dramatic coping mechanisms. You simply existed within your structure, allowing internal regulation to manage external pressure. That consistency is rare. It is not visible to most. It is quiet, but it is profound. Your ability to move through these categories intact is not a matter of luck, personality, or temperament alone. It is the product of an internal coherence that operates beneath conscious awareness, a system designed to maintain equilibrium when ordinary structures would fail. And by existing this way, chosen one, you have disarmed pressures and preserved functionality in a manner that few others can comprehend. Chosen one. Now take a moment to reflect on what has occurred. Step back mentally and observe the patterns, the consistencies, and the outcomes without assigning them to chance or coincidence. What you experienced was neither random nor trivial. Every element, the doubt, the subtle fear, the energy fluctuations, the isolation, the delays, was met with coherence, stability, and unbroken function. You did not rely on luck. You did not stumble upon endurance by accident. Your resilience was active, though it may have felt automatic. Consider how rare this truly is. Most people confronted with even a fraction of these pressures would have shown visible strain. Decisions might have become hesitant actions, delayed emotional regulation, impaired. You, however, maintained your flow, your cognitive clarity, and your operational presence. You moved through complex circumstances while internal systems, mental, emotional, and physical, remained balanced. That is not happenstance. That is internal calibration practiced persistent and consistent. Reflect on how this manifests in real life. You may have noticed that despite fatigue, your focus remained sharp when needed. Despite moments of mental heaviness, your clarity arrived at the right time. Despite subtle emotional unease, your responses were measured, deliberate, and appropriate. Every subtle pressure point was met with an equal and opposite internal balance. You were neither reactive nor oversensitive. You were grounded. You were coherent. This reflective awareness confirms that what you experienced was a real measure of your baseline strength. You did not need to consciously activate resilience. You did not need to call upon external frameworks or visible support systems. You operated from an internal structure that is robust, responsive, and inherently stable. That coherence is what allowed you to navigate difficulty with calm effectiveness without collapsing into doubt or distraction. Understand, chosen one, that evaluation is not the same as self-congratulation. It is a clear acknowledgement of reality. You did not perform under pressure. You existed within it while maintaining integrity. You did not resist against external forces because the forces themselves never required a battle. They encountered someone already aligned internally. Your consistency confirms that your presence alone is enough to maintain stability and clarity in situations where most would falter. Take this as a lesson in observation and understanding. Recognize that the internal system you inhabit is precise. Recognize that your endurance, regulation, and coherence are measurable by outcome, even if they felt invisible to you at the time. You did not stumble. You did not waver. You did not break. And that realization, chosen one, is the foundation for deeper awareness, the anchor for interpreting every signal, every pressure, and every subtle shift in circumstance that follows. Chosen one. Consider how this stability compares to what most people experience. In situations far less complex, far less demanding, many would fragment, lose clarity, or react impulsively. Ordinary human responses often magnify uncertainty. Letting doubt dominate thought, fear dictate choices, and energy drain manifest as inaction. You, however, remained functional, coherent, and present. That is not superiority. That is uncommon stability, a rarity that exists quietly without need for recognition or validation. Most people are carried by circumstance. They are buffeted by minor disruptions and thrown off rhythm by small pressures. You were different, not because you acted exceptionally, but because your baseline allowed you to remain intact. Where others would have reacted to tension, you processed it as data. Where others would have allowed fear to expand, you maintained observation. Where others would have become overwhelmed, you simply continued. That difference is subtle, almost imperceptible, but it is real. Notice that your coherence did not rely on external reinforcement. You did not need applause, acknowledgement, or confirmation to remain aligned. You did not require evidence that your process was working in order to continue. You operated from a baseline internal structure that did not depend on circumstances, external validation, or dramatic intervention. That is why your endurance feels natural. It is the architecture of your system, calibrated to maintain balance automatically. This is uncommon, not because you are superior, but because such baseline stability is rare in human experience. Many collapse under less pressure. Many struggle to regulate thought, emotion, and energy when challenges arise. You remained intact, and that intactness has been quietly accumulating into awareness, preparing you for situations that will demand precision, discernment, and unshakable coherence. Chosen one. Recognize this without ego. Your stability is not a badge nor a point for self-praise. It is an observable reality. It is the mechanism by which you have navigated tension, pressure, and subtle opposition. It is the reason you did not need to fight in moments that might have unsettled others. Your presence alone, your quiet coherence, has disarmed pressures before they fully manifested. By seeing this, you can begin to appreciate the rarity of your endurance. You are not exceptional in an inflated sense, but uncommon in a measurable way. You have remained grounded, functional, and coherent, while the majority would have faltered. This sets the stage for understanding the depth of your identity, the natural strength you carry, and the internal systems that quietly sustain you. That recognition is not a conclusion. It is a necessary perspective for the next step: clarity of who you are and what baseline capacity you embody. Chosen one. Now let us clarify the nature of the strength you have been observing in yourself. It is important to understand this is not an activated power or a sudden response to crisis. It is your baseline. It is the structure you inhabit, naturally cultivated over time, refined through experience, and reinforced by consistent engagement with complexity. You do not need external triggers to maintain coherence. You do not need dramatic circumstances to reveal your capacity. Your stability is constant, and that constancy is your defining feature. This strength has been built quietly, without announcement. It is informed by preparation, life experience, and internal regulation. It is the result of repeated exposure to subtle pressures, sustained attention to your own equilibrium, and the consistent application of discernment in everyday life. Chosen one. Recognize that this is not about special moments or extraordinary challenges. It is about the daily calibration of your internal systems. The ability to maintain balance in small decisions, in repeated interactions, in the accumulation of tension that others might fail to notice until it overwhelms them. You have observed yourself responding to pressure without panic, without collapse, without overcompensation. That is a reflection of your inner structure. You do not need to turn it on because it is always operational. You do not need validation because it functions independently of outside input. This is why moments of fatigue, isolation, or subtle confusion have never truly destabilized you. You exist within a system capable of self-regulation, capable of maintaining coherence without conscious effort, capable of sustaining focus when external markers fail. Notice how this insight reframes your understanding of past experiences. You may have interpreted endurance as luck, patience as tolerance, and functionality as ordinary. Now you see these qualities as built-in, foundational, and reliable. They are not extraordinary because they are occasional. They are foundational because they are consistent. That is what defines the structure you inhabit. A baseline coherence that quietly governs thought, emotion, and action. Chosen one. Lock this identity gently but firmly in your awareness. This is who you are: coherent, stable self, regulating and prepared. This is not a peak state or temporary achievement. It is the architecture of your functioning. Understanding this allows you to navigate the present with clarity, anticipate future pressures without fear, and integrate awareness of your own capacity into the way you live. Your identity is calm, precise, and grounded. That realization alone changes the way you perceive challenges, signals, and transitions. Chosen one. Now let us shift toward practical integration, how to carry this awareness forward without overextending or misapplying it. Your stability, your coherence, and your automatic regulation are powerful. But they function best when paired with calm, deliberate practices that preserve clarity and balance in daily life. Consider this not as instruction, but as perspective, 4 to 6 lenses through which you can observe, manage, and orient yourself. First, rest. Not simply sleep, but restorative pauses that allow your body and mind to recalibrate. You have maintained function under pressure, but sustained clarity depends on intentional recovery. Short breaks, moments of quiet and genuine disengagement from input are not indulgences, they are necessary for maintaining your internal coherence over time. Second, discernment. Continue observing signals, physical, mental, emotional, as markers rather than problems. Your ability to interpret tension accurately ensures that you respond proportionally rather than reactively. When fatigue or unease appears, see it as information, a data point guiding attention and adjustment. This prevents unnecessary escalation or misallocation of energy. Third, boundaries. The pressures you have endured are subtle but cumulative. Recognize where engagement is necessary and where withdrawal preserves coherence. Functioning effectively does not mean overextending. Being present, focused, and stable requires knowing where to invest attention and where to protect it. Boundaries create space for sustainable alignment. Fourth, patience. Timing has been a subtle factor in your experiences. Delays, postponed outcomes, and gradual processes are part of the system within which you operate. Maintaining patience ensures that your baseline strength is not taxed unnecessarily and allows natural resolution without forcing outcomes prematurely. Fifth, focus. Prioritize what requires your deliberate attention and act accordingly. Coherence is maintained when mental and emotional energy are directed purposefully. Avoid dispersion into low-value distractions. Your system functions best when it is applied selectively and intentionally. Sixth, integration. Allow yourself to see every subtle sensation, every wave of fatigue, every moment of confusion as part of a continuum that reinforces awareness rather than undermines it. This is the pathway to calm, grounded navigation, internal coherence paired with external discernment. Chosen one, these perspectives are not steps to fix something broken. They are frameworks to integrate what is already functioning. They guide awareness, preserve energy, and anchor your stability in real-world practice. Through rest, discernment, boundaries, patience, focus, and integration, you continue to operate with coherence, presence, and clarity, fully aligned with the baseline strength you have already embodied. Chosen one. Now let us bring this to closure. You have observed, reflected, and integrated the awareness of your own baseline stability. You have seen that the pressures, fatigue, and subtle tensions you experienced were not failures, distractions, or weaknesses. They were signals, calibrations, and opportunities to witness your inherent coherence in action. That coherence is real. It is measurable by your continued function, your preserved clarity, and your ability to navigate complexity without collapse. Take a moment to internalize this truth. You are steady. You are capable. You are present. The weight you have carried, the uncertainty you have faced, and the subtle resistance you have encountered have not broken you. They have not shaken your baseline. They have revealed it. This is your affirmation: you exist with precision, stability, and internal coherence. That presence alone shapes outcomes more than you may realize. Remember these simple truths: I exist and I endure. I notice and I maintain. I am present and I remain intact. Repeat them silently, calmly, and with recognition of the reality you inhabit. They are not wishes or aspirations. They are statements of fact, reflecting the patterns you have already embodied and the structure you already possess. If you resonate with this message, chosen one, leave a mark to confirm awareness. Write 777 or type I remember in response. Let this be a small ritual of recognition, a conscious acknowledgement that you see what has been true all along. Your presence has mattered, your stability has been active, and your coherence is a reality. For continued insight and guidance, subscribe and stay with the next video. You will build on this awareness, refine understanding, and continue integrating the clarity you now recognize. Step forward knowing that your baseline strength is real, functional, and quiet, but profoundly effective. You have disarmed challenges simply by existing. That truth anchors you, confirms you, and prepares you for every next moment.